Welcome to Photoeyeconversations. Today, we're going to be speaking with Maggie Taylor, and I'm Photoeyegallery Director Ann Kelly. Thanks for joining us today, Maggie.
Thanks, Anne. It's fun to be here.
When did we actually last see each other in the real world? Summer before last?
Yes, because last summer my whole trip there was canceled, so like a year and a half ago.
But you've been busy making work.
Yep, I've been staying at home making work since the whole coronavirus thing exploded last spring. And at first I didn't mind it. I like being at home and I like my studio and living here. I live in North Florida and it's beautiful, but as time goes by, you sort of feel like Groundhog Day. Like every day we do the same thing. There's no airplane flight to somewhere. There's no trip anywhere. It's kind of bizarre.
You've made good use of it anyways. I understand you're working on a new book as well.
Yes, I have had this sort of in my plans ever since in 2013. I had this book, No Ordinary Days, that had just a collection of my work in it. Nothing to do with Alice in Wonderland, but just my regular images that are just like an ongoing series of whatever I feel compelled to make next. And so I had in mind of doing a sequel to that. So No Ordinary Days was like work from 2000 or maybe even 1999 until 2013. And then, or 2012, I think is when it actually stopped. And now I have eight or 9 years of work that's unpublished, and I would really like to put it in a book. So I'm going to use the same graphic designer, and she's great. She lives in San Francisco, Connie Wong. She used to live here in Gainesville and taught in the graphic design program at the University of Florida. So I love working with her. She did my website and everything. And we're going to do just images, and a really wonderful guy I know from South Carolina, Charleston, named Mark Sloan, is going to write an essay for me, and we'll see what happens.
Well, the last book was beautiful, so I look forward to seeing the new one when it comes out.
I feel like it should be a jewel-like collection. Like that's what it is. I want it to be beautifully presented and something that people enjoy physically and visually. And so it will be very similar to the No Ordinary Days book, I can say that. But it will be at least a year away because it takes a while, when you're, the graphic design and then shipping it off to be printed. And I'm self-publishing it, which at least at this point, I think I'm still self-publishing it, which I like to do because I have all the control over everything and no one can tell me I can't have 5 different colored ribbons in it.
I love the 5 different colored ribbons. Did a great job with the last ones. So I was kind of jumping ahead a little bit. For anybody who's not familiar with your work, can you briefly describe your process?
I take bits and pieces of reality that are sampled from either my cell phone or a scanner, cobble them all together in Photoshop to illustrate something. But the problem is I don't have an illustration in mind in the beginning. It's very much like a work in progress. It has to be like I have to start working on something, retouching it, trying to put it together. And then I realize, oh, maybe this is actually about something totally different that I didn't realize before. And they take usually a couple of months.
And a lot of times they're kind of intuitive and spontaneous, and maybe there's kind of something that inspires you, and then you kind of jump off from there and see where it takes you.
Yeah, so they never start out the way I think they will be. And I don't do sketches in the beginning because that's just going to deter me from feeling free to change something. So, something could start out recently, a new thing I started with, which I won't even show you now because it's too embarrassing. But I thought, I woke up in the morning and I thought it would be nice to have an image of a woman with her head on a pillow and she would be surrounded by some little sheep or something. But then would her eyes be open or closed? I'm not sure. And can I make the head look okay on the pillow or not? Now it's morphed into a full standing figure who has a dress made of nighttime stars. And I don't even know if there are any sheep in that picture, but it's like ebb and flow over the days. You have to just keep working on things. And I usually work on 2 or 3 things at a time. So if one of them gets to the point where I'm really frustrated with it, I can go and work on the other.
Well, I love that about your process. there's kind of this assumption that when someone is using digital tools, that it's this really planned process and there's no room for happy accidents like there are in the traditional darkroom. But as technical as your work is, I've heard you say maybe you might turn off the wrong layer and see something that happens there, and then that inspires the rest of the image.
Like sometimes you turn off the wrong layer and suddenly the whole image is really dark or really blue or really red, and it just kind of takes you into a different realm, and you're like, wow, I never considered that as an option here. So, and at this point I feel I'm fluid enough working in Photoshop that I don't ever have to think about how would I make that shadow, or how would I make this more transparent, or, you know, whatever the how would I. That's not a problem. It's more like you're just playing a piano and it's okay. It's like, you know, just free form. But the problem is making the decision. So it's like there's so many options. Something could be totally white, totally black, or any color in between, and any size you want. And it's very hard to make visual decisions. And you go to bed at night thinking Command Z, undo, undo. Like maybe I need to take that back a step. So that's the challenge of it in a way, but I enjoy it. And you can't do it 8 hours a day. That's one thing about it. Like, honestly, if you would sit at the computer for 8 hours a day and do this, I think it will fry your brain. You have to do other things. You have to get up and do physical things and have other projects. That's why I like working on this book right now, because I have actual little 4-inch prints, like little things on the wall downstairs, and I can play with them and sequence them. I don't even want to do that in the computer because I don't need more time on the computer. I need to have a real world project.
Oh, definitely. And I would imagine if you stare at any one image that you're working on for 8 hours, you're going to kind of go blind to it to a certain extent, or I would think you lose.
And then you'll kind of end up hating it after a couple of days. So it has to be it's part of my day, but it can't be my whole day kind of thing. So I have to get out and do some gardening and other little projects, and lately cooking. I'm loving that. I mean, since I can't go to restaurants anymore, I'm learning different stuff, and it's kind of fun.
This portfolio is mostly 2019 and 2020 work.
That one's called the Day Sailor. If you want, you can show that one and then the other one, and I can show you a little bit in Keynote of how they kind of evolved as I was working on them, if you want to see that.
Yeah, that would be great. But I mean, just
there's the guy.
Hearing about the process of how they evolve is one thing, whereas seeing it.
And those are two that I worked on, and that I definitely worked on at the same time. Like I wanted them to be a pair together, and I wanted to make sure that whatever finished version of them, they felt balanced and equal and had similar color schemes. So I can show you something about those. The two little sleeping pigs, are they on there on your website? There we have the second one there. Yeah, yes. That's another one. So those were like, this was the first one I started working on last spring when we went into our quarantine here. So I can show a little bit of something about that if you want. It's kind of like a story of it. Would that be good?
Yeah, that would be great. And then, I don't know if you have, big fan of this one here as well. I don't know if you have.
Oh, yeah, I might have something about that. I love that polar bear. Okay, so last spring when we started with the whole quarantine thing here, normally in the spring I go out and look in my yard or my neighbor's yard for stuff that I can scan or photograph. And it happened to be that the magnolia tree across the street was looking really beautiful. So I was just photographing magnolias. I don't really know what I'm going to do with them. I just put them on the table outside on a piece of black cardboard and photographed them because the light looked nice and they were interesting. And I took lots of pictures of them. Then I came inside in my living room, and I've had these 3 little pigs for years and years, like for 20 years probably. And I got them in Chinatown a long time ago when it was the year of the pig. Actually, maybe I could figure out when that was, but it was year of the pig, or maybe it was the year after the year of the pig when they were on sale. So I thought maybe I could do something with them. I've always wanted to like photograph them. So I took one outside and photographed it, and I just do it outside in the sunlight. And I thought, well, this could be kind of cool, like circle of the magnolias, and and the little piggy. So I wasn't sure if he's like sort of dreaming there or something. And I worked on it for a while, and I've added some textures over it, like crackled textures from an old painting, just trying to sort of add a little patina to it in a way. And I thought about it being nighttime. These stars are horrible. They were just a little attempt. Sometimes you just have to have like a try and then see, and if it's worth it, you could make better stars, but I didn't like the stars. I tried a painting in the background, and it was a little busy. The only character I liked here was a little fisherman there on the rock. It's like a fisherman and a little dog stretching down the rock next to him. It's kind of small there, but I didn't like all these other people in there. So I retouched the painting in the background and just left the fisherman. And I thought, well, it's sort of like fishing for dreams, or the little pig is dreaming and he's dreaming about fishing. Yeah, that doesn't really necessarily make sense. And it started to bug me that I didn't have the best possible picture of the pig. And I wasn't even sure which of the three pigs I liked better. So I took the pigs back outside again and re-photographed them to try to see like which of the three is better and is there a better light. And this is like, with my iPhone, that's what all I photograph with lately. But I did this together, and then I realized, I did it this way because for expediency, I thought, let's photograph two pigs at once and see which one I like better. But then I was like, wow, it's so different when they're sharing a little pillow. And it was kind of like this COVID quarantine feeling of like, here I am at home with my husband and we're just stuck here forever and ever. So it ended up being more like this. And I took the little fisherman out of there and just let them be on their own. And when I make proof prints, I do tons and tons of color adjustments. You'll notice like here, this was the second to the last one, and I wanted to warm it up a little bit overall, but it also bugged me that the little pig's eyes, they were beautiful eyes, but they weren't quite big enough. They're little glass eyes that I put in there. So I'm making the eyes a little bit bigger felt a little more engaging. So that was like the finished version of that. So these are going to be related to the two that you asked me about. So in 2012 and 2013, I did this pair, and they were both called The Burden of Dreams. I wanted to do something else again. I liked these. I think they're fun and different, but I wanted to go back in and think more about what objects would be in there and the colors and so on, and like do a more refined version of them because it just felt kind of exciting to me still. And I had to look for a long time before I could find good profile images. The lady on the left is a tintype, and the man on the right is a carte de visite, like on a heavy cardboard paper. And I don't know, he's from Crawfordsville, Indiana. I don't know where she's from. And I don't love their clothing, but I thought they have faces that I would like to work with. So I put them in here and started to figure out, what are they going to have? Something coming out of their head, something coming out of their body. And I knew from the beginning I wanted them to coordinate with each other in some way. They should have the same water line, horizon line, that kind of stuff. So, and as I work on them, I don't really know. I just try a bunch of different objects, and I went wild with a whole bunch of stuff for him. And then I realized, well, what is she going to have? She needs some more stuff. And I really liked his outfit there with that collar. But my husband, Sten, came up. He always comes. He usually sits over here and tells me what he thinks about stuff. And he's like, that's a dorky outfit for the man. He would not be wearing that. And she looks more Star Trek-y. Like, what is that? So just try different things. And she had a house on fire that came from an earlier image of mine. And that's one of the things since the whole coronavirus thing, I'm enjoying reusing stuff from my previous work, little bits and pieces. It's kind of fun. Like, why not? You're stuck in your house, take things that you loved before and reweave them in there.
Well, and we've kind of seen that throughout your work. For example, that flying elephant reappeared a number of times in different compositions, which is always fun to see.
Yeah. And for a while, I thought these two didn't have to be totally coordinated, like they could have mismatched backgrounds, but then I kind of got more back into it. And I like this. I actually made a proof print of it this way, where they had black, gray outfits and let all the colors be in their ideas in their head. He's got a scale. That's what his thing is, like a scale. And a little monkey with a mask on is up in his scale. And I'm sure that's like a COVID thing, because I've gotten kind of into different, plague looking masks this year. And this has got a butterfly machine. Well, there's a canary, like a canary in a coal mine. And then the butterflies are going to fly up and through into a little butterfly holder that he has. And she's got a little beetle on her shoulder. The only thing they have in common is they both have the stopwatch, it's an old watch that is set at 11:11, because that's my favorite. It seems like every time I look at the digital clock, it's 11:11, and I love that. So they each have an 11:11 clock, but they don't have anything else in common than that. And she's got her sailboat, and he's got his polar bear. So that's the finished version of them.
How long were you working on that pair for?
About 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was from the beginning of the quarantine, which here was like, I think March 20th, we got the word that we would just start having to stay home in our county. I started working on a new flower image where I just took, older flowers that I had scanned. Each one of these flowers is either a scan or a photo of a flower, but they're all slightly different. And I don't like it, but I have to start somewhere and just try to put them together and make a vase, put some stuff in there, imagine what the background could be. So then I thought maybe there don't need to be any flowers in it, and it could be something kind of more haunting and strange. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll take a sort of pseudo library that I had from the background of one of my Through the Looking Glass images and try that back there. These flowers, they were a little too obnoxious and all the same, so I couldn't deal with that. So it goes on like this for weeks, like weeks and weeks of just every day refining, tweaking shadows, trying different things, and honestly, like being willing to just throw everything out and say, you know what, I might have worked for 4 days on the flowers. Maybe I have to throw them out. Maybe it's more minimal or something. So I tried all different versions.
So how do you know when you are done?
Oh, that's hard. I would say you get closer and closer. When you know you're close enough to make a proof print, then at least you have something on paper to look at. And usually from that point on, it's about 2 more weeks for me where I need to keep going back and checking it. So like I made a proof print of it like that. And I think I decided the colors were too pinkish in the flowers. I wanted a more coral color or something. So then I made another proof print like this. And it has one additional little flower in the middle there that's the heart of a magnolia. So here there's in the very center of the bouquet, there's a pink tulip that's like a magenta tulip. And I didn't like it. And I put in a thing that was actually from the neighborhood here that's a piece of the inside of a magnolia flower. And that made me tweak everything to be more kind of coral and blue colors, which kind of went with the base a little bit better. And I was thinking about these Magritte-like windows, having the clouds come in and out the window and the door. So at this point, I was fairly happy with it. And I thought there was still something kind of else that I wanted to do with that. And there could be 2 versions of it. So I went back and made this version. I was kind of intrigued by the whole image with just the fan coral and no flowers in it and just all these creamy and blue colors in it. So this is a second version of it, I guess. And that's something I don't think I would have done until this year either, because usually I feel like there has to be one finished version and I'm done. That's it. And now it's like, what's wrong with that? You can have multiple versions. And I like when I'm working, I kind of keep like, this is my today's work. Like I keep a folder for the year, and this is 2021. I have a few things. I'm kind of trying to work on some stuff, but I don't love this. I don't know where it's going to go. I believe someday I will end up with a finished image that has all of these toys, or a finished image that has a house in the sky, but this is not right. And then I tried a version where there could be the King Kong character and the house in the sky. This is not quite right yet. It's trial and error. The closest I've gotten the last 2 weeks is this image. And it has a little bit of a Magritte painting of a cloud in the background. Just these little bits here are from a Magritte painting. But then these are Sten's eyes, my husband's eyes, put in there, and a different little seascape in the foreground. I don't know. I made a proof print of it today. I made a 22-inch print and I kind of like it. I get up and I have several different things that I could work on. And
Look at
then I
it
have,
again with fresh eyes, and I'm sure just making the print makes a huge difference as well.
yeah, I love that little polar bear. He's from an old engraving, 1700s engraving of a polar bear. And I really kind of love that. That's the way that image started, was just the crow was going to be in a little crow's nest. And I was loving this sort of dark sort of seascape with a rowboat in the foreground. And that's taken from a couple of different paintings. I like to just take my cell phone camera when I'm visiting museums and photograph paintings. They have a weird sheen on them because there are lights above and everything, and it's kind of out of control, but I don't mind that. And I tried a number of different little seascapes from different snapshots I took. These would be like very, very old paintings in museums. So there's not a copyright issue, and it's just me interacting with the paintings and loving them and photographing them. So I put bits and pieces of them, and I know I'm going to retouch them. I tried a lot of different boats there to see what's the feeling. If he's a crow, like in a crow's nest or something, what is that? And finally, I kind of liked it like this. I like this cutaway where we can see under the water in my work a lot. Just gives you a different dimension, kind of like you're looking into an aquarium or something. So he was like this. And then I thought, why not put the polar bear there, the polar bear that I like? He looks kind of awkward. So I had to kind of cut and paste his legs a bit to get from the really awkward like that to that, fluff him up and make him look a little bit athletic. And then put him back in the water a little more too, because if he's too far up, it doesn't really make sense. He's not like pressed right up against the aquarium wall there. He has to be a little further back. And then I started working on the crow's nest and thinking crow has to have a lot more going on there. He's got to have some equipment of some sort. And then I got bored with the idea that the crow's nest was locked on the cliff. So maybe he could just be his own thing. And most of the things in the crow's nest are things that I've photographed in a museum in Paris about a year and a half ago. Little bits and pieces of small maquettes and scientific models and just putting them all together there. So that ends up being the finished, I think that's almost the finished version of it, like that. Oh, but wait, it wasn't quite finished, because then I have to always reconsider and say to myself, what if you throw everything out and make it nighttime?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and maybe butterflies are propelling him. It's important to consider all the options. And sometimes that can be an extra week or two. Then, no, I didn't like that. I went back to this one, but I had to consider the colors. Usually at the end, I reconsider all the colors. And for a while, I liked these green, kind of thinking about Tiffany glass colors or something. Then I went more with the blues, but it wasn't quite the contrast I needed. It looked a
You're
little
making
flat.
screen captures as you go. Is that right? To
Yep.
document the different.
Yeah, every day when I'm working, as I'm working, like every half hour or so, I do a screen capture. And definitely at the beginning and the end of the day, because that's so interesting. Like you could be working on it all day and start with this and end up with this or this. And you just want to look back at it and see what you've got.
Colors, I mean, obviously they changed the image, but it just feels different. It almost has.
Yeah, and like this feels really cold to me. Like I loved it. And I love the way the white polar bear looks on this gray water, like a silvery gray. And I made a print of it this way and it was really beautiful. But then I thought, do I really think that that works well with the Harbinger guy with his special little vehicle up there? Well, maybe he needs like a spotlight or something. Or maybe I need to eliminate the whole thing up there. Maybe the whole image is just about the polar bear in the moonlight. That was an option I had too. It's very hard to make decisions. So that's why I save things all along the way and try to decide maybe just the polar bear is talking to a butterfly. That's an option too. And it's not like any of them are complete dead ends, because something might spin off into another image, like if you're open-minded about it. But you see how long the process is, goes on and on. And a lot of the idea I had was I had been to the Atlanta Aquarium and photographed this.
A lot of the elements that you're photographing and scanning are physical objects that you have collected. That's part of the process for you. So I was noticing you've got an interesting, an exciting, interesting collection of objects behind you.
This is a chair that somebody made for me. It's made out of twigs. It's quite nice.
Have I
A guy named,
seen that or something that looks like that in one of your photographs? One of
you've
your
seen other twig ladders and stuff before, but this is the most delicate one.
Mhm.
This was made by a collage artist named Phil Parker from Flagler Beach, but it's just a delicate little chair. It's it's had a couple breaks already, but yeah, I like to live with a lot of stuff around me on all the walls here. That's actually the neater version over there. The rest is pretty messy.
Well, I love that about the work, though, that you're not just sourcing images from the internet or that type of thing. There's this whole active process of collecting the various elements.
And I don't mind if I have to take something from the internet. If there's something I really, really want, like a glass of milk or something, I will find it on the internet if I have to. But in general, I like the idea that the things are anchored at some point in my real life, and it's a book I collected or a print I collected or a place that I saw an image in a museum and photographed and interacted with it. I would rather have it be, and that's the way I remember things. I have a really good visual memory, and I can remember exactly where I saw certain paintings or saw something in an art history class years ago. I like that.
Well, I would think just living with the items would be a source of inspiration. Just getting up in the morning and walking by the the ladder chair, that type of thing is, get your
Yes.
imagination going.
I buy things on eBay a lot, but if I can go to a real flea market or something, I like that too. So this guy's kind of interesting looking, and I don't know, I could retouch him a little bit. You can do a lot in Photoshop to make the people look different or better. And this lady, I kind of like her. She has a
Wow.
very sturdy look to her. I don't love her hair, but I could work with her. So so those are sitting over there, and every day when I come in here, that's one consideration. Should I just spend the day working on them?
Getting them scanned and ready to go, or
Yeah, I mean, at this point, they are scanned, and I have them in my computer along with a lot of other things that are ready to go, but I have to kind of feel inspired. And to me, I have to look at the physical object and look at the front and the back of it and get some idea of who the person was, if I could get any idea. I don't know. I have a really interesting old Civil War book. This is a part, just an outtake of an autograph book. And I can remember having autograph books in high school and college. It was still popular then, even middle school for me. I mean, I'm born in 1961, so back then I can remember autograph books. So this is an autograph book that someone had during the Civil War. And his name, the man who had this book, is Grenville Sparrow. And I found out that someplace in Maine has an actual collection of his stuff in a museum. So he was not a revolutionary war, a Civil War person, 1861, March 8th. And everybody in this book went to war. All of his friends signed the pages and stuff, and they've each got a picture and a signature, and they went to work and worked for the army in 1861. So I can only imagine it was probably not a good outcome for most of them. But I'm most intrigued by the signatures, the faces, and this sort of quirky personality of the whole book. So and it's just an outtake of a book is all it is. I've been dying to do something with it, but I don't know what. So that's another project I want to work on.
now, do you wake up in the middle of the night with ideas? Like, I need to move the polar
Yeah.
bear 3 inches to the left, or
Yeah. Sometimes in the middle of the night, or more often, it's like around 6 a.m. when I'm starting to kind of wake up, that I like to spend about 30 minutes in a twilighty period, just in the early morning hours before I get up and have my coffee and just think about it. Like, what is it I want to do with that? Somehow, for me, when I first wake up in the morning, my brain is a little more free thinking, and I might just latch onto some new idea.
well, thank you so much, Maggie, for your time tonight. Really, really appreciate it. Good catching up and good to see your face.
Yes, good questions, Anne. Thanks.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you, and thank you everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Maggie Taylor. If you'd like to know more about Maggie's work, you can email me at gallery@photoeye.com, and I'd love to tell you more. Thanks again, and have a great day.